What's going on, family? How y'all doing? Welcome to Conscious Conversations. So we have to have you here on tonight. So, family, I invite you right now. Go ahead and like, share, subscribe. With the whole world of you are here with us, rocking with us for Conscious Conversations. On to welcome you on tonight. A great discussion of engagement, of intellect, of spirituality, of thought, of criticism, of critique. Because we are here tonight to have a strong conversation. So, family, I'm excited. The whole point of you are here to experience tonight. And right here at Conscious Conversations, we are here where inspiration interacts with intellectualism. And we empower life to live between Sundays. I'm your host, William Madison, also known as Pastor D. And I have some great guests to join us on tonight. And so we welcome you to this conversation. Tonight is entitled Just Don't Look, Just Don't Look. So again, we're going to wrestle with some strange stuff on tonight. But I got to make sure I pause and I introduce our guest for tonight. Now, my first guest I want to introduce, he's no stranger to this on the platform. In the person of the deacon, I'll call him the deacon, Angelo Martinez. Hey, Deacon, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What's going on? Everything's good.
Hey, look, he's Angelo Martinez. I rock with him at the King Center. He's a great thought leader. He does spoken word. I mean, he does all this cool stuff. So again, Angelo, we are glad to have you with us one tonight. But I'm super excited. I mean, I'm elated. I'm expected. I'm hyped. I'm like a kid in the candy store. We have a dope person to rock with us on tonight, in the person of the Reverend Tracey Anderson. Tellado, and I gotta make sure that I put her right now. I'm gonna read her bio as she comes up. I mean, she is a phenomenal person. I met her a while ago. And she is a womanist theologian, minister, chaplain, author, and a U.S. Air Force veteran. She holds degrees from Wesley College and Logsdon Seminary, and is currently pursuing a doctorate of ministry at the Interdenominational Theological Center, ITC. There it is. And of course, and she's focusing on prophetic problem solving through decolonizing community centered methodologies. I mean, Tracey also completed a year-long chaplain residency with Christian Health Systems and serves as convener of the Southwest Region's Racial Reconciliation Committee of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. She's a published writer. Her work appears in Families of Faith and Advent devotional African American churches and families of reconciliation, the final step in achieving nonviolent social change. I love that. Oh yeah, And she also, and when she is preaching, when she is writing, or advocating for justice, Tracy can be found in one of her favorite bookstores, often while wearing something purple. Tracy, welcome. I see it. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, look, I told y'all earlier, I'm excited about having you, Tracey and Angelo. I mean, I'm geeked up. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, I'm hyped, and so I'm looking forward to us tonight having a conversation. So first, before we dive in, how y'all been? What's going on with y'all thinking? How y'all living? How y'all feeling?
I guess I'm doing. I don't know. I'm doing okay. Just the title of the show, Just Don't Look. I wish I could not look, for one thing, because there is some cray stuff going on. But as for me, I'm just trying to keep going, doing my little thing, just keep putting one foot in front of the other and not letting it get me down.
I feel you. I know that's right. Angelo, how you be?
Well, hot in Miami. I'm in Miami, so it's hot. But other than that, though, I feel the same way, especially when you look at the title of the episode, Just Don't Look. The history that carries with that and how it's being modernized today. So heavy, heavy in the politics, heavy in the social, the cultural, everything that's impacted policies, the livelihoods. So that's where I'm at. especially sitting with the title, Just Don't Look. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I tell y'all, it's a lot going on, but at the same time, I've really been trying to find spaces to hold some joy, right? Because I mean, if you know, I mean, the news cycles, just the constant noise. I mean, it's always something, and so but yeah, I mean, it's just it's so much, and then on top of all that, this weekend, um, you know, we had uh, the goal and the boldness to host Little Cousins Weekend in our house. And so my house was full of 8 and 9 year olds for a whole weekend. And so I'm pretty sure I'll need therapy by Thursday. Um, I'm gonna be in recovery. Um,
Ooh wee.
oh, it was live and living color. I mean, real talk. But and nonstop. And and I've never seen so much candy in my life. That's all I can say.
It's been a long time since I've been around 8 and 9 year olds. So
Oh yeah. It was different. It was different. It was definitely different. But I survived. I survived. So I'm gonna hold on to my hope. I survived. I made it. I made it. Now I'm sure I got some war wounds, but I made it.
I can
So,
imagine.
all right, cool. So now, real quick, before we dive in real fast, I want her to know, answer one question, both you, Tracy, and Angelo. Um, what is your favorite food?
My
Ah,
favorite food.
oh yeah.
You first, Angelo.
I have a, I have a favorite type of food, Mexican food.
Okay.
But I have a list though. It's Haitian, Mexican. So those are the top. Anything that comes from the Haitian culture and the Mexican culture, top. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Reverend Tracy, what you got for us?
I can't really think of, like Angelo said, types of food. I like Mexican food. I like Mediterranean. I love lamb.
Okay. Okay.
Most anything spicy.
Okay. All right. All right. There we go. So my favorite food actually happens to be seafood. Um, but next to that will always be Chicago style pizza. I broke Angelo in Chicago a few months ago, and I think I changed his life forever. Um, I exposed him to deep dish pizza, and I think what you got
Okay.
for me? What you got
The
for me?
real deep dish pizza. Don't say that. Don't say that. That's the real deep dish pizza. Okay.
Pizza literally did not occur to me at all.
Really?
At all.
Oh yeah. Oh cool. So we got Haitian. We got Okay, cool. I dig it. All right. Well, let's go ahead and ready to dive in for the meat for tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts or feedback. I mean, I'm just excited. So to kind of level set the stage for tonight and kind of where we'll be headed, I want to kind of share a bit about our discussion for this evening. So, in a world where uncomfortable truths are often avoided, tonight, just don't look. We're going to dive deep into the patterns of escapist behavior that surrounds race, that surrounds theology, that surrounds literacy, that surrounds oppressive policies. And so tonight we're going to explore how society, institutions, and individuals, how we sometimes choose to turn a blind eye to systemic injustices that fuel cycles of avoidance and denial. And so, in a time and space where we should be looking and paying attention, than many of us who are choosing not to look. And this topic really is born out of a conversation that I had a few weeks ago. I was in a meeting, and a young lady was sharing her experience while visiting the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. And while she was there, she was saying that she was touring a portion of there in Memphis. You can tour the Lorraine Hotel where Dr. King was assassinated. And at the time when she visited the museum, the hotel room that Dr. King was staying in was actually encased in glass. And as she walked in, you could still see in the room Dr. King's Bible in the bed as it was, in the room as it was prior to him being assassinated. And as she looked in the room, she began to weep and she was crying. And she felt the weight and the heaviness of that moment. And so while she was looking and crying, someone walked up to her and asked her a question. She said, "No, well, what's wrong?" And she replied and said, "No, can't you feel the weight of this room, of this moment?" And the woman replied to her and said, "Just don't look. Just don't look." And I thought about that for a while, and that's what's happening in our culture. That's what's happening today. We're in an environment where people are being told not to believe what you see, but just trust what I say. We're in an environment where we're even in our faces, we are telling people ignore the impending authoritarianism, ignore the racism, ignore the injustices. God's going to deal with it. And we're encouraging people just to live and turn a blind eye to watching forced migration. We're in an environment where we're encouraging people to ignore inhumane treatment. And so that story that she shared, even though it was historical for her, for me it was prophetic because it was speaking to where we are right now in our present moment. And I can only imagine the pain that people feel right now who are being impacted by oppressive policies, oppressive systems, inhumane treatment. And they're wondering, is there anybody that sees what I'm going through? Is there anybody who is watching and paying attention to what I'm experiencing? Is there anybody who cares? I mean, there's a song, old school song, "Where is the love?" And they're wondering, where is the love? Because what's really going on. So tonight we're going to dive into that. And so before we go further, I mean, I'd love to hear you all's reaction just to hear the story. Just don't look. That hurt me to my core. I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, I was shook. Y'all on pause. I feel you.
Because so one word that comes up to my mind is privilege, like the privilege to even say it and act on it. So the privilege to say, just don't look, like as a comforting term, as a comforting phrase.
Yeah.
But it's also an act of avoidance because when you think in that space, the historical moment, assassination, those who were present didn't have an opportunity or privilege to look away. They had to deal with the real moment of the assassination of Martin Luther King and others that were present, especially for the work and the legacy that he left. So when you look at that and then you look at the modern times of just don't look at George Floyd, just don't look at Eric Gardner, just don't look at Ahmaud Arbery. And it's interesting because in that space, everyone was on social media and they saw. And so you have people saying, using exclusive behaviors and, pulling up records and trying to paint a picture of someone trying to criminalize them. And it's like, that's what you should look at. Don't look at what just happened.
Right.
Don't look at an officer who obviously went against his badge, his honor, his pledge, and also did not see a human, So when you look at the layers of all that, we still practice it. We practice it through social media, news, narrative control, and how we paint a picture, or the picture that we want to paint. Yeah.
Chris, what do you think?
Well, to your point, Angelo, it is a lot of privilege to say just don't look. I'm not, I have questions about the exchange because I would have reacted differently depending on who said it. But you can't just not look. And I've been in situations like that too. I remember a couple years ago, I went to a prison in Johannesburg, and I had the same reaction. I was just crying because I could feel the heaviness in there. And the same thing would hold true with Dr. King's room. There's so much that's going on right now that it's that's taking the easy way out. It's easy to say that, well, I'm just not going to look, and I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm not going to look at it. It's not me. I don't have to pay attention. But what I think is happening now is people are being forced to look because the shit is happening to them now. And it was easy to just bury your head in the sand previously, but now more and more people are in the same circumstances where, like I said, where they cannot look away.
Yeah. And I'm hoping, to your point, when people are being forced to look, I hope that they're connecting the dots and they're processing and seeing what's happening in this moment. But one of my concerns are that though people may be forced to look and see what's happening right now, my concern is that people are not able to comprehend what's happening in this moment. One of the things that I've been wrestling with recently, and Angela and I, we've had a few conversations about, is the fact that there are a lot of people who don't know our history, who don't know from whence we've come, and or are just so disconnected from the story, from the narrative, from truth telling, that they can't recognize what's happening. And then furthermore, there's this article that came out in the Atlantic a few days ago that is highlighting that we are in a post-literate society. So, and that phrase right there just scared the hell out of me. The fact that to be in a post-literate society, and that's frightening. But that makes me question. It makes me wonder, like, are people comprehending what's happening? Are people processing what's happening? So there's a few things from the article that I want to share, and then we'll play a video, and I'll love to hear your thoughts and reactions to it. But so according to the National Endowment for the Arts, fewer than half of adults have read a book of any kind, and that was in 2022. 38% read a novel or a short story. And then the American Fine Arts Survey says that Americans who read for pleasure, it fell from 28% in 2004 to 16% in 2023. Now, 4th and 8th grade reading scored are dropping dramatically. In 2024, 35% of high school seniors were near proficient at analyzing complex text. And here's the big one, man. Nearly 30% of American adults cannot paraphrase or make inferences from a multi-page text. We are losing comprehension and we're losing synthesis. So people aren't thinking, they aren't reading. We can't think critically. And so, I mean, I'm I'm just wondering, you know, are people not looking because they can't even comprehend what they're looking at? They know they're, intellectually, we are losing the battle for thought. And so when it comes, to having conversations about what monuments mean, what the Confederacy actually was, all these through lines through history. If you don't know, if you aren't reading, if you can't comprehend, are we actually making the connection? Tracy, what comes up for you to hear that we got 30% of American adults who can't paraphrase or read a paragraph? That scares me.
Well, my brain stuck on, you said post-literate society. I guess the first thing I thought of was when Barack Obama got elected and we were in a post-racial society. I'm more inclined to believe the post-literate society than I ever did the post-racial society. And the idea, I think it's being done on purpose.
Yeah.
I truly do. Curriculum is being changed in high schools, in colleges. Everything is being whitewashed. Books are being banned. People are not allowed to see representations of themselves in books. And all we see now, and I like to talk about, I like to think that, well, I don't like to think, but I think that it's like the Romans. I feel like we're in the downfall of the Roman Empire, and we're getting thrown bread and circuses and entertainment, all kinds of things are at the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
People don't. I honestly, and I know this probably sounds like privilege, I can't imagine a life without reading.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember not knowing how to read.
Yeah.
And so the notion of somebody going an entire year and not reading a single, how do you do that? I don't know. But it is very scary, because this is why we're getting mollywopped in the world.
Yeah.
And the president, I would bet he hadn't read a book. I would bet he doesn't have enough attention span to read one.
Or stay awake.
Yeah, the record.
Exactly.
Record
There's that.
Right. Yeah, Angelo?
Yeah, wrestling with that post-literate, like, it's a crazy, like, apocalyptic term, I guess it is, in a sense of like arts and how we function as humans. And it's also scary because one of the things, as Reverend Tracy was sharing, one of the things that popped in my mind was like, if we are reaching a post-literate society and we have politics still functioning, and then we have groups like Project 2025, who has over a 900-page, I call it manifesto, but strategy. So it's like, one is, you might raise questions like, how did they get that together? And you're like, well, it's in this playbook. How come, if you take time to read, do you even understand what you're reading? Because they understand what they're reading. They understand the system. They understand. They studied. They've got people together on executive levels. They invested time. So it makes me think too, like, on one end, how are we accessing reading? Is it that short form content? And if so, is it only a snippet where you can't even get the full context, and then you run with it because it's put on someone else's podcast, someone else's rant or vent, and then they're just twisting the whole thing, and you're running with it because now you're influenced. They're an influencer to you, and you are just basically what Dr. King called a soft mind. You have a soft mind because you are not sitting with the bias behind something, the context behind something. You're not being a student, so you can be educated yourself to make and develop a tough mind to understand truth within it. But that was one of the first things that came to mind was like, how would you even understand Project 2025, the playbook? It also makes me think, if that is true, then this can also prove that conservatives, if this also includes conservatives in that data, that they did not even read or even understand critical race theory. So when you think about that, when you think about the context of how that hype happened and how that got brought into the conversation, leading to the banning of books, Board of Education, being led by conservatives, and it was just critical race theory, and no one. So if that data is true and that includes conservatives, then we can make the assumption, a proper educated assumption, that they did not themselves read it. So it shows you how it can be weaponized in many ways.
Yeah. As you were talking, I thought about, and what came to mind was how so many conservatives were up in arms about Obamacare. Like they were like, oh no, Obamacare has got to go, it's got to go, it's got to go. And then, but the majority of them have no idea that Obamacare was the Affordable Care Act, and could not make that connection. They didn't know. There was no. They didn't even take time to even explore, research, or read to find out, that this is the thing that I actually need to survive. But because, and I think also that, and parenthetically, for me, that also highlights the nefariousness and it's nefarious, but I'm also going to say it's masterful in the narrative building that conservatives have employed over time, right? And they are masterful at creating language that convinces people that they don't need something, and so labeling it Obamacare made it sound bad to them, and so but no one took time to go read and research and find out, no, it's actually the Affordable Care Act, which you actually want and need. And then beyond that, being able to read policy, actually read amendments that you're voting for, right? And so in a lot of instances, we have people who are voting against their interests because they cannot comprehend what they're reading. They don't know what they're reading, or even are they even taking time to read? And to your point, Angelo, or are they being reactionary and just trusting in, and just believing what they're being fed in talking points, in narrative, and short form, and social media? So people, I don't think people are thinking in this space. And I'm also worried though about how this is impacting education, higher education. And so I'm going to drop a video real quick, and I want you to listen to it. And I would love to hear your thoughts, your reaction to this piece. I mean, when I saw it, it was a killer for me, but I want to hear your feedback. So here it is. Here we go.
Going through. If you're new here, I'm Shay. I'm a PhD candidate at Harvard. And there's two trends. There's two trends I'm always talking about. And I'm talking to the people that exist at the intersection of these two trends. Higher education is collapsing. I don't wish it to be so. I'm acknowledging the realities that at one point, and we're getting to that point soon, the cost of higher education is going to be far more than the benefits. We are reaching the point soon where employers might not even require a 4-year degree, or they might require a 2-year degree instead, right? At the same time, the creator economy is expanding, whatever you want to call it. The knowledge economy, the information economy is expanding. It's shifting. Those are the two trends. Trust is at an all-time low. People can't trust what they see. They can't trust what they hear. They can't trust what they read. I speak to people who are at that intersection because I don't think people realize how many PhDs are unemployed right now? How many lawyers are unemployed right now? How many doctors that are moving away from their practice? Something's happening to knowledge workers. Where does that intellectual capital go? How do we reproduce critical thinkers outside of traditional institutions that can no longer capaciously hold them for where we are going? I'm not saying what happened in the past, where we are going. That is what I'm speaking to. Because I think sometimes when I'm trying to articulate this huge economic shift and cultural shift and knowledge shift we're going through, that gets lost. And how do we take up space and rebuild trust, combat anti-intellectualism, reproduce critical thinkers, make sure that people can trust what they hear and see and read again?
Those are some big questions. Because the anti-intellectualism is absolutely real. The cost of going to school, going to college, the cost of it, I think already has made it to where, because, well, I'm kind of bitter because I'm already paying student loans right now, and I'll probably be paying them until I'm dead. Just the thinkers, I believe it's on purpose. I believe all of it is part of a game. Well, not a game, but it's all part of a plan. Mm-hmm. They are trying, the people that are in charge, the ones who actually are thinking and have maintained critical thinking skills, who are teaching their children to be critical thinkers. I found it very telling that, like, the people who make all of this technology don't allow their children access to it because they know they are just basically numbing us and putting out whatever information. I mean, it is really like 1984. We have come to that point. Like when what's her face? I can't call her name right now. During the first Trump administration, when she talked about alternative facts. Oh, Kellyanne Conway.
Right, yeah.
And that was the portent of things to come. Because right now, it's the truth. You can't believe what you see, what you hear, but you have to be. That's the thing. Those of us who are critical thinkers, who do the work, are becoming further and fewer between, and that is the point. That's the point.
Yeah. When I first saw that video, my mind went to a movie I saw years ago called Idiocracy. And, of course, it was a comedy and all these things. But in that movie, I mean, again, for me, it was very prophetic because it highlighted a culture, a time when people just stopped thinking. There was no critical thought, and so they didn't know what to do. They couldn't manage society. They didn't know how to handle trash. I mean, it was just a plethora of things that were going wrong, and you have people in charge who were equally as dumb as everybody else was, and so so thinking about what she was sharing, one of the first things that caught my attention, because it for me kind of create this parallel in Just Don't Look, because we're not paying attention. We're not watching this. We're not watching what's happening to our kids' brains. as we're allowing them to watch nonstop social media, iPads, YouTube, short form videos. I mean, just and so and I was reading an article then last week, and it was saying how our brains are like a muscle, and for many of us, it's becoming an unused muscle. And so we are losing the ability to infer, to think critically, to question, to process information. Here you see it, and we are losing the ability to discern information. If
Yep.
you can't discern information, you can't discern fact, right? And you will lean into alternative facts because you can't process information. But what also scared me though when she said that there are PhDs that are work, lawyers that are work, you know, and so people who have intellectual capital that helps and that thinks for a living and makes things move. What's happening? But I love what you said, Tracy, though. I do agree with you. I do believe it's by design because it's easier to control an unlearned populace. It's easier to control people who don't who cannot think. And so I think again the attack on education, on history, the whitewashing of information, the dumbing down of information. I mean, all these things. I agree. I do believe that is by design. Angelo, what do you think, man?
Couple things. First response to the idiocracy. Everything has electrolytes. But that was a funny line to me every time in that movie. Two, highlighting Reverend Tracy's like anti-intellectualism, because what that means is there's an intention. That phrase alone, it means there's an intention, there's a bias, a prejudice, discriminative practice, behavior, thinking that goes behind it. And it also reminds me of Hitler's Mein Kampf, the manifesto he wrote, where he even said, I leave a reason for few. So he knew how to emotionally persuade people. And I think that's where we are kind of shifting more towards of an emotional expression, emotional overdrive of decision making, politics, understanding. It just goes into that whole you're right, I'm wrong, it's black and white. There's no understanding of complex systems like our economics, our capitalist society. What does that mean to challenge it? Even Dr. King said, like, we should reevaluate capitalism. This is me paraphrasing, but we should reevaluate capitalism over and over again because there has to be a new form, a critical piece of that over time. We can't stick with the same system. And so I do believe it's intentional. I do believe that I'm coming from a state, my home state, Florida, when you have someone in office as a governor who puts in policies of DEI, if your schools, and he also went into a policy of saying, if you're a government, you cannot if you seek third-party DEI, nonprofit training and things like that, you can be criminally penalized. So when you think about policies and the criminalization of just reaching to be educated on diversity, on inclusion, on equity, like you're criminalizing that in itself. But we also have a person in charge who's saying, nope, you can't go past this point. If you get educated, now you're becoming a threat to the laws of the land that I've made. And so we are. And even now, like we're trying to create a African-American museum for the state of Florida in St. Augustine. And I remember when it was initiated, it said it had to follow the education policies of the state of Florida. So what does that mean? How are they going to tell slavery? How are they going to tell, what stories are they telling? So now they're controlling the narrative. They're trying to make sure you're being conditioned intellectually, educationally in a specific way. And so I think it's very dangerous. And I do like how in the video she said we need to be mindful, like, what do we do with these critical thinkers? Do we reassess the blueprint of freedom schools? Do we reassess these things where we have to challenge current institutions who have bent the knee because they've been financially threatened by the current administration? So we have to really think about, okay, if this is true, this is fact, how do we act? And how do we make sure we have an infrastructure to make sure it's the longevity of it? But those were like my main thoughts as everyone was sharing.
Well, Angelo, if I recall, in Florida, the enslaved people were servants and they learned a trade. And that's what happened. They weren't slaves. They were servants, and they had a good life, and they benefited from their servitude. And I am convinced that we are just what the whole thing with Project 2025, in my opinion, is that the groundwork was laid. And see, and these folks, like the Republicans, all them people, I gotta give them respect. I gotta give them respect because their game is strong. And when they don't give a fuck. They are doing what they want to do, right in your face. And these Democrats keep talking about they're trying to be the bigger person. They're doing all this shit. Republicans, whenever they got power, they don't care. They don't care. And the framework to roll back everything. Any and all progress that has been made, every bit of it is addressed in Project 2025. And it was out there for years. They weren't trying to hide the shit. They told you what they were gonna do. And and people, see, here's the thing: not thinking, not believing the bullshit that was coming out of these people's mouths. And you know, and that's why we are now in the find out part of the fuck around, because that's exactly what the plan is. And I truly believe that they are not trying to take us back to Jim Crow or anything like that. They're trying to bring us back to the good old days of slavery, when the darkies was doing what they were supposed to do. And the dumber America gets, the more obvious it is that the only reason that America is a superpower is because they had free labor to build the country. If that had not been, America would not be a superpower, and they're not even really that much of a superpower now.
Right. You know, first of all, I'm so glad you cussed. Thank you. But secondly, no, but you're right though. And for me, as you're talking, some intersections rise up for me. And the intersection of how our theology has been used and weaponized and has really given way to where we are right now. People have been so encouraged and so taught and so fed and so programmed to lean into a conservative, westernized, Americanized, oppressive lens of Christianity that has informed their way of life, their way of thinking or not thinking, and it has encouraged them to not be concerned with what's happening in the administration, in policy, socially, economically, because in their minds, based on what they've been told theologically, you know, this is the end times. It doesn't matter. We know we all God's going to do with it. We know we're going to go to heaven, so there's no reason to be concerned. right? But along with that though, and so this idea and this this avoidance of reality, I think is being fed by that. But also, to your point, Tracy, all at the same time is it is a part of a plan. So it's been a strategy since 1964, 65, since the passing of the Voting Rights Act and Civil Rights Act. And and so where we are now is no aberration. This stuff began back then, and even probably I would even say Reconstruction, because if you go back that far, we got to remember that it was when they pulled the troops out of the South is when they ushered in Jim Crow, and so we have been living this this kind of ebb and flow, of racial progress, pushback, racial progress, pushback, racial progress, pushback. And we've been living that, but at the same time, it's been slow work that's been employed of undoing all progress. And so one of the things that I contend is that we really, once we get the VRA and the CRA, and a lot of our institutions began to act and live as if we made it. And meanwhile, on the other side, they were slowly putting people in city council, education, school boards, mayor's offices, government, just House, Senate, and so judges. And they deliberately built the infrastructure to where we are right now. And so, but the just don't look part of it for me is we've had folks, again, I'm pastor, preacher, all these things, but we've had folks in church having a good time, worship, we're focusing on international missions, foreign missions, all these things, while right here in the world, things are being reconstructed. And we're being taught and being fed, it's okay, we are going to heaven. And so we've been ignoring the realities of what's happening. And so, yeah, and then you combine that with anti-intellectualism, like the church, and I get mad at the church because we are one of the major purveyors of anti-intellectualism oftentimes. We encourage folks to don't go to school. We encourage folks, to not read, not ask questions, don't question the text, don't question God, don't question what the preacher says. So we have created a culture of not thinking, of not questioning. And so what happens, folks don't think and don't ask questions. And guess what? Here we are. And so, but here's one more video that I want to watch and react to. I think it kind of breathes in this space. And I want to hear our reaction to it because I think it speaks a lot to where we are right now. So here, let's watch this video.
They were not voting for value. They were voting to avoid being left out of their community, left out of their church, left out at their own dinner table. It was a 100% self-serving vote. They knew exactly what it cost other women. They just made sure it was another woman who paid the price. Dinner left for that, and you're definitely not going to like the answer to this one. Researcher Scott Hudel at Duke University studied exactly why people vote against their own interests and published his findings in the journal Trends in Cognitive Sciences. He called it expressive voting. People do not vote to protect their interests. They vote to express who they are. And when their identity and policy compete, identity wins every single time. 41% of college-educated white women voted for Trump in 2024. Not women without college degrees. Not women who didn't know better. Women with degrees. Women with careers. Women with options. They voted for Trump even after they knew he would take away their right to choose. After a failed insurrection at the Capitol. After he bragged to another guy he would just grab women because he was famous. Here's why. Their church said vote Republican. Their husband said vote Republican. Their community said vote Republican. And their brain chose belonging over everything else. Losing your reproductive rights feels abstract until it happens to you personally. Losing your community feels like losing everything right now. So they voted to keep their community, even as he took their rights away. They were not voting for policy. They were not voting for value. They were voting to avoid being left out. Left out of their community, left out of their church, left out at their own dinner table. It was a 100% self-serving vote. They knew exactly what it cost other women. They just made sure it was another woman who paid the price and not them.
So many thoughts. I am one of those 41% white women, educated, with a career and options, who voted for Donald Trump. Because when policy and identity went up against one another, my identity won every single time. That was a great way to kind of put my sort of unconscious actions into tangible words. The one thing I will disagree with is the end of the video. I did not know what I was voting for. I did not understand what it actually meant to remove access to abortions. I am now here telling you, as a woman who lives in a state where that is no longer an access for women, who also wants to get pregnant again. I am concerned about getting pregnant in this state again. That never happened before, because what I needed to know as a woman could not penetrate my identity in the system that I was born into. That is the only part of that video that I disagree with, because I did not know. You know, a Black woman sent me this video and asked me my thoughts, and it really pains me that I relate to so much in that video. And I'm asked over and over again, how can we wake up other women, like white women that have woken up like you? And I really think it's just time. It's the planting of the seeds who are capable of continuing to do that right now. It's voices like mine, of those who no longer subscribe to that sort of ideology and way of living, and being a vocal voice despite what it means to completely separate from that community that we voted for, because we wanted to remain attached to that. Add in the whole layer of like thinking anyone that is left, a Democrat, doesn't vote for Trump, is pro-abortion, is literally under a satanic demonic spell. I know how absolutely silly that sounds now, but that is truly how people operate. And so they're like, I'm not going to listen to you. You're listening to Satan. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I agree with the video, but I don't agree with that every single one of those 41% of those white women know exactly what they were voting for, because I didn't. I did not understand. The data shows that when access to safe and legal abortions is able for women, abortions go down. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's what the data shows. And I tell that to people and they're like, well, we can't really trust that data. And it's just this hamster wheel. So that's why I'm just saying it's going to take time, because they hear it, but they don't hear it.
Yeah, this heifer. I am so sorry. That's some bullshit. I did not know. Please. I first of all, I don't believe that. That guy was right. I'm sorry. You were supposed to ask what our thoughts were.
Go.
Because I told you I felt a way about this video. First of all, just give them time. Who has time?
Right.
Who has time at this moment? You know, all of this stuff about community and about voting with identity makes me think of way back when, in the midst of time, in his book, The Christian Imagination, Willie James Jennings, the theologian, talked about whiteness as property. And we know that was what happened here with Bacon's Rebellion, where people, you know, the rebellion where there was a coalition of everybody. The rich white planters, I have to tell you, they were masterful. But that has what it has always been. It doesn't matter if I ain't got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. As long as I'm white, I have that. And the the discomfort, the racism, the belief in their superiority, that's a community of people who believe that they are superior. And it doesn't matter what else is happening. And that's the thing. These people, I don't care what they say. I believe that they thought all of the crap was going to happen to everybody who wasn't white. They don't realize that they have more in common with Black people than they have with this rich government. It's like they see themselves, I heard once, as one lottery ticket away from being on the same level. They do not understand that there's way too many of us who have too much month left at the end of our money. But they don't see it that way, because you Black people, you brown people, y'all are not as good as me. And it don't matter that they're literally signing their own death warrant. But as long as they get to do that in a community of white people, it's all good. Like cutting off their nose to spite their face. And her saying that she doesn't know that, and sounding all teary and whatever, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be as violent as I am, but it make me want to punch her in the throat. Because I cannot stand this, like she's woke. And she talking about mea culpa. I was one of those 41% of college educated women, and I didn't know. Come on now. How could you not know? Don't make excuses. Just say you messed up and keep it moving. If you're ready to turn around or straighten up and fly right, fine. But don't be making excuses, and don't talk about what you didn't know. That's my take.
Yeah. I think it's important, to recognize that I think her story is true, and it is replicated throughout so many spaces, right? And I'm gonna raise something that's also a bit uncomfortable. I think that it's a truth that we got to wrestle with as well. That this didn't just show up in white spaces. This shows up in Black spaces. It shows up in Haitian spaces. It shows up in Cuban spaces. It shows up in Hispanic spaces. Because this idea of first white adjacency.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge. And so a lot of people are voting against their own interests, but for the sake of white adjacency, right? But beyond that, groupthink, right? The whole idea, again, identity, community, relationships, and so you have people who are attending churches and and faith groups and faith spaces that they're not thinking about how they're voting. They're just reacting to and voting for how they're being told to vote. And so they're not engaging in the process based on policy. They're not thinking critically about what the candidate brings to the table. They're literally just saying, I'm gonna follow the crowd because I want to make sure I can still attend my church. I can still have the same friend group. I can still and so no matter harm my vote is causing. And so I think we also is showing up in various spaces. And the number of people voting against their own interest is what scares me. But I love how you said it. Just own it. Just say, hey, I messed up. But the piece for me also is, Angela, I'm here for you first. But I do want us to kind of wrestle with the escapism that's tied to all this too. But Angelo, When you saw that video, man, what did you think? How'd you feel?
Very alike with Reverend Tracey, because hearing saying you were educated and you didn't know in the same breath. So to me, kind of how we've been talking about comprehension, lack of comprehension, and then group identity makes me wonder, yes, so one, access of information. Who's your source of information? Is it only solely Fox News? Is it solely conservative independence to reinforce it? And, we brought up church. Is your space echoing that in conversation? So to me, it's the wrestling of you're educated. So the question is, what's your comprehension level of your understanding of news? Are you just listening to one as a, end all be all, this is the fact, your fact is not, alternative facts, fake news, if it doesn't align with you. But then it also, a couple of things that were probably on my mind too was the fact, like the history of how we had education, like how education within segregation or when integration was happening, the just don't look mentality was, let's create parent-teacher organizations so we can make it harder for Black and brown communities, to be bussed in, or we're not going to learn Black history. We're not going to learn Puerto Rican history, depending where you're at. So like that just don't look mentality, the structure, the policies. And then the other fact I was wrestling upon, it was Martin Luther King in one of his writings said that the first generation was intentional. They created the policies, the structure, the system. The second generation was to be taught to reinforce it, to keep it in play. But then you get to a generation, you don't have to think about it. You just benefit from it. And I think when I was listening to her, that was kind of some of the wrestling thing. I was like, well, you're just operating in a system that, yeah, you're educated, you're privileged, you might name it, but you are still operating in the system to a point of, hey, I can lean into my identity more than my knowledge, more than intellectualism. And so I think for me, I've been like wrestling by a line with Reverend Tracey, like, how can you be, say, on one end educated and then say you don't know? So it, to me, just wrestling with all that, because it's really of like a choice of just don't look. You're choosing to just don't look. And the history and the legacy of that harm, that violence that happens with that mentality and that practice. Yeah, so I was sitting with it all. So I was just like, I can't hear like educated and don't know at the same time.
Well, that's because all of that crap is baked in. White privilege, and what kills me, I once had a professor when I was in college over here at A&M tell me, a PhD, she told me that she did not have white privilege. And ran down this whole thing as to why she didn't have white privilege. She was the first to graduate from college in her family, blase, blase. And I'm like, y'all just don't get it. The way the system was set up is because the white is the privilege. It's not about anything else. You have the privilege of being white. And for that privilege, you have given up everything. You know what I realized is that, all these immigrants that came to this country, Italian Americans, German Americans, Irish Americans, all these other hyphens, they came here, and for the privilege of whiteness, they gave up their culture. Mm-hmm. They gave up everything so that they could wear the mantle of whiteness. So in actuality, they are no different than the Black people who came over here and had their tribes and had their identity stripped from them and were just given Black. The only difference is we didn't want to do that. Mm-hmm. They did it willingly.
Mhm.
That's why they ain't got no culture.
Mhm.
And that's why the thing is, we came here stripped of pretty much everything that we had and created an all new culture that everybody in the world trying to emulate.
Mhm.
But for her to say it's all of a piece, no, they're trying to take away knowledge, they're trying to take away history. And if I saw one more person talking about CRT in kindergarten, I was going to scream, because I know they didn't know what it was about. They were just parroting whatever they had heard. And that is exactly what the problem is. If you have no education, any old thing somebody else dumps in your head, you're going to run with it. And that's what they want. And now, I mean, look what Trump said on the election trail, talking about you just have to vote this one last time. What the hell?
And at the same place, he said, "I'm not a Christian" at a Christian rally. So it's just very interesting. And their clapping followed all. So the disconnect is crazy. And you know,
But
Reverend Trish,
God sent him.
but you brought up something. So there's two personal things that I've experienced, which is very interesting. So coming from Miami, so background Puerto Rican and indigenous. So growing up, when Trump was first running, that's when everyone saw the Cubans coming out, voting, flags down the street, crazy. And I remember in early voting, I ended up in a library, and it was predominantly white and white Cuban and growing Colombian and white. And so I remember in that voting booth, this lady was assisting another in Spanish and to her voting booth. The next lady literally said it in front of everyone, say, "We will no longer speak that language anymore under Trump." Now, this is early voting, don't know the outcome. This is 2016. So it was interesting to hear for me to see, like, I wonder how the Cubans feel right now in this building because of the assimilation, the cultural assimilation, the racial assimilation, the upward mobility economically to be living in that community that's well off and it's known to be well off. And then the other part too was in my social work class, in one of my classes, undergrad, we had a huge debate on the wet foot, dry foot policy that favored only Cubans when they touched America. For those who don't know, when you touch America, you stay. You can go through the process. You don't have to worry about being deported, things like that. And I remember in that class when we touched it, the Cuban students openly expressed genuinely they did not know that policy existed. And it was interesting to me because I was like, I know your parents know, and I know your grandparents know. And the Haitian students called them out, saying like, it was because of the wet foot, dry foot policy. You don't have to worry about deportation. We do. It's only extended to you. And so it's just interesting, like that tension of you reach a certain generation, they don't know, but they're benefiting. And that has and because of that benefit, you create a discriminative behavior mentality, even towards other Latino groups, the Mexicans, Salvadorians, and other groups that you're like, nope, they're illegal. And, but because they never had a wet foot, dry foot policy that favored them. So, and at the same time, it's like the whole assimilation, racial assimilation, economic assimilation, the benefits that come from it. But it was just interesting how that little moment, I was like, I wonder how they feel. And yet 2024 to 2020 elections or whatever that came about, heavy voting for Trump still. And even here in Miami, there's tension amongst the Black community and the Cubans. So it's very interesting to see how that the power of assimilation, racial assimilation, and white adjacent, how much that impacts us communally, socially, politically. So yeah.
Yeah, I think also along with that is, the influence that theology and religion has in these spaces. Um, if we look at when you talk to the word Christian around, and we use it very freely these days, but I think people are aligning with oppression and injustice because it's wearing the mask of Christianity. We're watching in real time Jesus being used as a mascot for hate, and so, but people are wrestling with that, right? They're if you come from one culture, one country, to America, and maybe that may have been your faith, lens from where where you come from, and so, but you're following, your faith. You think you have people who were raised in conservative, environments, and so they've been taught that conservatism is synonymous with being Christian. you know, um, so there's a lot of noise that's happening in the atmosphere. A lot of again, the desire for white adjacency, anti-intellectualism, people not knowing history, not knowing, and again to your point, Angelo, not knowing how we got here, not knowing the benefits of or animal privilege that brought us here. Tracy, you mentioned, again, you know, knowing your privilege and where it comes from, knowing that privilege is not something that's abstract. It's whiteness. And so all of these things but for me, the undercurrent that scares me the most out of all of this is that we are encouraging people not to look. And back to Doris, the story in the beginning, being told just don't look. Family, we're being told not to look. We're watching news, we're watching social media, we're watching all these mediums of information encouraging us not to look. And we're watching in real time culture shift for the worse. Um, and so, man, I know, time is running out, but I want to ask this question. We talked a lot about, what's happening. Tracy, can you give us a word of hope, insight, inspiration on how we can begin to shift the needle and encourage people to look again and pay attention?
Well, I think one of my, I have now curated my Insta and everything else for laughs, for hopeful stories, for all of those kind of things. And I think that there is still good going on. People are still helping each other. There is still joy to be had. And to see that, you have to look. I mean, I know that folks don't want to look at things that are hard to look at, but sometimes the things that are good to look at, you're not going to see unless you really are paying attention. And the thing is, most of the time, that stuff slides under the radar unless you know. And it's very easy to not look, especially when you're being told not to look. But I believe that there is still good, and I believe that you have to use your eyes to see it. I just, and that gives me hope to be able to, to see people that will still smile, that will still say hello, that will still hold the door open for you, that you can still have a good conversation with. Like, it would be very easy to be cynical all the time. And you're talking to somebody who is loaded for bear most of the time. But the hope for me is to go and just see that there are still good people of every stripe, and that community is still here despite it all.
Thank you. Angelo.
I would say for those who are currently doing the work, continue to find the power, the joy, the resistance within like-minded groups and circles. I think that's very important to sustain and maintain self-care, and also the journey and the work that's being done. And for those who are on the fence, who after hearing this and maybe have been wrestling with like looking, I would say ask the question, what's making you resist that look? What's resisting you to see? Is it what you've been taught, conditioned? Is it the comfort? And kind of shift that into a place of curiosity. Ask, why do you want me to learn this? Why do you want me to see this? And I think that's a place that's hard for a lot to get to, especially in this climate. But I would say, yeah, for those who are doing the work, seek like-mindedness, seek the power that comes with it, lean into the hope and the energy. And for those who are in that place of trying to figure out what they need to see, enter that space with curiosity, genuine curiosity, so you can reach that place to see what everyone is talking about. So,
yeah. I want to echo, with both Reverend Tracey and Sadiq, Angelo had shared. And I also want to say, one of the things that we have to recognize in this space is that we cannot correct what we refuse to confront. And so in this time, we don't have the option not to look. We have to face it so we can fix it. We got to see it so we can address it. And so I know it may be heavy. The weight may feel burdensome. It may challenge what you've known, what you thought, what you perceived, what you believed. But family, we have got to take a look so we can confront it, so we can correct it. And we're watching in real time. As we always say, we're watching in real time organized love. What could happen? Imagine a world where if we organize love in the same way we're seeing hate be organized. So, but we got to look. So let's look in love. Let's look in hope. And look, believing that we can have a better community. We can have a better world. We can have a better society. And we have to look at it. We got to face it so we can fix it. We got to look. Family, it's okay to look. Take a look. And let's make a difference together. Family, I got to pause right now. I want to thank all of you for watching, for joining in with us, for listening in with us. But I also got to give a virtual high five, of course, to my wonderful guests. First of all, to Dee, Angelo. Thank you so much, man. You were great. Thank you. But most importantly, I got to give love to my new cousin friend, Reverend Tracey. Man, you my homie. I mean, thank you so much for being with us. You are amazing. You're phenomenal. You are a gift to the world. And so thank you so much for being here. So let's give her some virtual love. Come on, family. All right, fam. And to all of you for watching on tonight, we thank you so much for being with us here at Conscious Conversations, where we discuss things that matter and we wrestle with our intellectualism and our inspiration. And so we thank you for being here again. Like, share, tag a friend. Let the whole world know that you are right here with us at Conscious Conversations. Let's be thinkers and believers and believe in the possibility of humanity, of love, and we can be better. Family, we'll see you soon. Bless. Love.